Thank you for watching QTV with the news. My name is Diana SUMBWE. We take a look at stories making headlines. Republican President Edgar Lungu has directed the Minister of Finance to ensure that procurement of drugs and medical supplies is always prioritized. Finance Minister Wale Ngandu says the terms of reference given to him by President to stabilize the growth and grow the economy offer limited room for delay. And organizers of the Yellow Card campaign against corruption have been challenged to report perceived corrupt government officials to relevant authorities. And now the news in detail. President Edgar Lungu has directed the Minister of Finance to closely work with his counterpart for health and ensure the procurement of drugs and medical supplies is always prioritized. Speaking when he commissioned the $15 million United States Phase 2 of the medical stores warehouse in Lusaka, President Lungu has assured of government's commitment to ensuring that Zambians have access to adequate medicines and medical services in an effort to achieve the Vision 2030. The head of state has also warned against the pilferage of drugs, saying government will not tolerate the pilferage of medical supplies and medicines because a lot is being invested. We have more details in this report.
President Edgar Lungu has today commissioned the new $15 million United States ultra-modern medical stores limited warehouse. The new warehouse now has capacity of over 34,000 pallet spaces from the current 7,000 pallets, with a cold room with an additional capacity of 700 pallets and a walk-in freezer. The commissioning was preceded by a tour conducted by the head of state, health minister, funders and cooperating partners and other senior government officials, as well as management from Medical Stores Limited, among others. President Lungu has since directed the Minister of Finance to closely work with the Minister of Health to ensure that the country is free from drug stockouts, further warning against pilferage of medicines and medicine products.
Going forward, our priority will be to ensure a sustained availability of quality medicines and medical supplies built on an efficient and effective mechanism. As government, we have declared a zero tolerance to stockouts of essential medicines and other pharmaceutical supplies in our public health institutions. We will not tolerate stockouts at all. In this regard, I wish to publicly direct the Minister of Finance to closely work with the Minister of Health and ensure the procurement of medicines and medical supplies is always prioritized. Always prioritized. My government will not tolerate pilferage of medicines and medical supplies at all. This is because if this situation is left unchecked, we would be denying our people the much needed medicines and medical supplies. Therefore, we will be tough by ensuring the enforcement of relevant policy, legal and operational instruments to guarantee high standards of safety and security, including efficiency throughout the supply chain.
Health Minister Dr. Shitalu Chilufya and a representative from the United States Embassy had this to say.
Your Excellency, your presence today yet again signifies your boldness, your vision to attain universal health coverage. Your Excellency, you cross the length and breadth of the country, planting infrastructure for health and speaking to health system inputs. And today you speak to one fundamental in our health system strengthening program, that's the supply chain.
As we continue to work together to build a supply chain system that meets the demands of all Zambians, we need to ensure that these investments last long into the future. Maintenance of these investments is critical to ensure that uninterrupted commodity delivery continues so that no child goes unvaccinated and no person living with HIV stops treatment because they did not have access to drugs.
And European Union Ambassador Alexander Marianne had this advice.
The budget for the medical store is provided into the budget voted by the National Assembly, and then that there is a good and constant flow of the financial resources to the MSL. Second point is that to improve the overall governance of the procurement and supply chain management of medicine, it's important to eliminate or to mitigate the accumulation of arrears in the payments of drugs. These are essential elements to complement the facility that is going to be inaugurated today.
The newly constructed warehouse will help government match the increased needs of medicines, vaccines, and medical products through the provision of safe and quality medical storage facilities. Nakaonga reporting for KTV News in Lusaka.
Finance Minister Wale Ngandu says his honeymoon is short as the term of reference given to him by President Edgar Lungu to stabilize and grow the economy offer limited room for delay. Speaking during a meeting with the Cooperating Partners Group, which paid a courtesy call on him, Dr. Ngandu says the need for action is immediate. He says his ministry will require the unfettered support of the cooperating partners to push policy implementation and get work done. Dr. Ngandu pledged to meet all the partners individually in order to reach common ground on areas that need attention in order to stimulate faster implementation of development programs. Meanwhile, the cooperating partners have restated their commitment to support the implementation of the 7th National Development Plan. Speaking as chair of the Cooperating Partners Group, German Head of Development Cooperation Christoph Fritz says the assurance by the Zambian government to implement austerity measures is a very important message to the international community as it demonstrates the resolve of the authorities in taking corrective measures in the country's progression towards fiscal health. The CPG also encouraged the Minister of Finance to continue with the efforts towards the acquisition of the IM-supported economic program in order to expand the financing options available to Zambia by way of support from other cooperating partners. During the meeting, the two parties also agreed on the need for the Zambian government to develop an action matrix that will help stakeholders to track progress in the implementation of the socio-economic policies and reforms in key areas such as agriculture, energy, and good security. Organizers of last Saturday's Yellow Card campaign protest against corruption have been challenged to adduce evidence and report to relevant authorities corrupt government officials. Young African Leaders Initiative YALI President Andrew Ntewe says his organization finds the allegations to be grave and requiring to be dealt with decisively. Mr. Ntewe says YALI is thus willing to escort the conveners of the Yellow Card campaigns to the Anti-Corruption Commission ACC to report the alleged corrupt government officials. Addressing a media briefing in Lusaka, Mr. Ntewe says his organization disapproves the fight against corruption where whistleblowers is only used for grandstanding. He states that YALI believes that the fight against corruption requires a citizenry that is courageous enough to report corrupt elements to relevant authorities.
Formal complaints must be done to relevant authorities. We challenge them that they should bring forward the evidence, compile the complaints, and ensure that these complaints are tabled before the law enforcement agencies. From the early point of view, we can assure you, members of the press, and we assure our colleagues, the Yellow Card campaigners, that we'll be ready to go with them to the relevant authorities to report the corruption if they have the evidence and are able to put in place formal complaints. If we are not seen to be taking these formal complaints to the relevant authorities on the grave allegations that have been made by our colleagues, what might happen is that they might be jeopardizing the chances of cooperation from the...
And Mr. Ntewe says his organization does not support protests against the Constitution Amendment Bill 2019 and the reopening of the Copperbelt University CBU. He says YALI is in fact urging the Minister of Justice to go ahead with the tabling of the bill in Parliament this week and for people not to do a protest for the opening of the CBU.
The Young African Leaders Initiative calls on the Minister of Justice to ignore calls by those crying woof woof to withdraw the Constitutional Amendment Bill before Parliament. But we call on the Minister of Justice to table the Constitutional Amendment Bill in Parliament this week. If anything, we call on the Minister of Justice to table the bill before Parliament tomorrow, since the 30 days have elapsed from the time the bill was published. We must allow the bill to go through all the processes, including the committee stage after the second reading, when amendments can be introduced. In essence, we want to state, NDF came up with the Constitutional Amendment Bill. We want that bill tabled in Parliament without any amendment, so that the people's representatives are able to debate the bill, and also we allow other stakeholders to also go to Parliament and submit.
The Minister of Water Development, Sanitation and Environmental Protection has warned that it will demolish all houses or buildings built on riverbanks in areas that are likely to contaminate the country's aquifers. Permanent Secretary Bishop Dr. Eddie Chomba is disappointed with the insatiable appetite of owing land and building from citizens that they are agreeing to buy land however and wherever it is allocated. Bishop Chomba says citizens should question some of the areas they are offered land and make sure that it is not along the path of facilities meant for water provision or storage connectivity. He says councils have a major role to play in this regard to ensure that land in areas that have potential to contaminate the aquifers once buildings are put up is not allocated to the people, as the situation has great potential to cause waterborne diseases. Bishop Chomba has since disclosed that his ministry has trained officers with the power to prosecute cases of encroachment on water protection areas.
If we contaminate the recharge areas and our aquifers, all waterborne diseases will not run away from us. And that is hinging upon human activity. Now, I fail to understand why a person can be allocated a piece of land right in the riverbed. And this river is a perennial river, meaning it runs every day, and this person gladly accepts that and they start to construct. I mean, you can't say, no, I cannot construct my house in the river. I think it is a two-way thing. If a local municipality, a few of our people there who are rogue or who are divergent, they try to give a piece of land in the area where people are not supposed to be or where service provision is not there, you've got the right to come and say, well, there will be no service provision there, I can't construct my house there. But we have got this insatiable appetite whereby everybody wants to construct, a house to live in, even though that is rightly so. You can't construct in the waters. You can't construct in the dry sewer pond. There's a maraloo smell and people don't care. They just go and do that. Look what we have done in Ndola and in Kitwe. We have demolished those, infrastructure, buildings that are there. We have put them down because they were doing that in the Kafubu River. They are doing that, in another river in Kitwe as well. We don't want that to come all the way into Lusaka. Because remember, cholera has been knocking for a very long time, since 2017, 2018. And I want to assure you, if our activities, they don't change, then cholera will resurface.
Government has been urged to consider heavily investing in electronic governance in order to consolidate the benefits that the country has achieved so far. World acclaimed international relations expert and president of World Native Identity Foundation, Dr. Charles Zinkala, says electronic governance would help government deliver services efficiently and transparently through interrogation of various standalone systems. Speaking at the Zambian Chancery in Pretoria, South Africa, when he led some investors who have shown interest in investing in Zambian education sector, Dr. Zinkala notes that while there are concerns about negative impacts of technology on society, Zambia should fully embrace the technological revolution as there are more opportunities to complement their achievements. He has further noted the need for Zambia to update its current education system with an internationally recognized education system in order to produce creative and innovative solutions to poverty and unemployment problems. Dr. Zinkala, who is also Chief Executive Officer of Hanox Group of Companies based in South Africa, says that Zambia needs to invest about 65% of its resources in the education sector in order to compete favorably with other countries in the world that have flourished in the last 50 years. This is contained in a statement issued by First Secretary, Press and Public Relations at Zambia's High Commission in South Africa, Naomi Nyawali. Former Transport and Communications Minister William Harrington has appealed to President Edgar Lungu to reconsider the degazetting of the Lusaka East Forest. Mr. Harrington has told Q News in a walk-in interview that the President should cancel Statutory Instrument number 62 of 2017 and Statutory Instrument number 13 of 2019, which is signed to degazette Lusaka East Forest number 27 to pave way for residential and other developments. He states that the signing of the statutory instruments is not in the public interest and the interest of the residents of the SUMBWE and Chalimbana. Mr. Harrington says it is extremely shocking to note that President Lungu has degazetted part of the ecologically sensitive protected forest to pave way for the high-cost residential housing for selected beneficiaries who he claims may be politically connected.
So for me, it is therefore extremely shocking to note that you, Mr. President, has degazetted part of the ecologically sensitive protected forest to pave way for high-cost residential housing for selected beneficiaries who may be politically connected. Because I have the information, I know exactly who has been given, who has been awarded plots in those areas, in that area. This, what we have done is through degazetting that forest, is in total disregard of the lives of the majority, thousands of citizens who petitioned Dr. Chiluba in 1994. So I'm pleading to you, Mr. President, to exercise your executive powers, those vested in you, to cancel SI you signed in the public interest. It is not too late to save the lives of the thousands of people in the Chalimbana and SUMBWE areas. Please, can you order the stoppage of the ongoing housing development in Lusaka East Local Forest number 27, which is causing irreparable damage to the environment and threatening the lives of the local people.
Patriotic Front Secretary General Davis Mwila has warned that stern action will be taken against anyone using the name of the party to encroach on Baobab land and any other areas. Mr. Mwila says that party members across the country should not commit illegalities in the name of the party. He has advised the PF members to follow the due process of the law and lay down procedure when acquiring land. Mr. Mwila has directed all provincial structures across the country to guide members and structures within their respective jurisdiction in this regard. The Patriotic Front Secretary General has since called on the Zambia Police to arrest anyone demarcating Baobab land illegally or under the name of the party. This is contained in a statement issued by Patriotic Front Media Director Sunday Chanda. Meanwhile, Patriotic Front Luangeni Member of Parliament Charles Zulu has differed with the party's position on the reintroduction of deputy ministers in government. Mr. Zulu says having previously served as deputy minister, he thinks the position is necessary to have in government. In an interview with QTV News, Mr. Zulu says while he respects his party's position, he feels austerity measures cannot be an excuse for not reintroducing the position of deputy ministers. Mr. Zulu says the reintroduction of the deputy minister's position should be about service delivery. He feels government ministers will be more efficient if ministers had deputies who are able to act in their positions.
Let us come up with new ideas, but simply to say no, because of these austerity measures we must do away with the position of deputy minister, then I think we are missing the point. The point here is, what are the functions of a deputy minister? You know, we must look at service delivery. Are we delivering enough? Are we effective? Are we efficient enough? You know? So like I said, you know, the position of deputy minister, I don't think really it can go too much into the treasury. For me, I strongly feel that we must look more into implementation of projects. And this is exactly what I was doing as deputy minister myself in the Ministry of Energy, where I was all over myself. I was all over the country, implementing projects for rural electrification, implementing projects for ZESCO, looking at petroleum products.
Patriots for Economic Progress PEP President Sean Tembo has noted with regret the recent closure of Pan-African Building Society and Zampost Microfinance Limited by the Bank of Zambia due to insolvency. Mr. Tembo says he has no doubt that these closures are as a result of government's failure to remit payroll loan deductions made by government for loans contracted by civil servants to to respective financial institutions in full and on time. He says he is certain that for as long as government continues to default in remitting these loan deductions, more and more financial institutions will be forced to shut down due to insolvency. Mr. Tembo has stated that the negligence by the Patriotic Front government in fulfilling its financial obligations to respective financial institutions has a very retrogressive impact on the economy. He says as a result of government's continued failure to remit loan deductions from civil servants' salaries to respective financial institutions, a number of lending institutions such as Bayport have implemented a moratorium of lending to civil servants. Mr. Tembo has since appealed to Finance Minister Wale Ngandu to immediately enforce some semblance of fiscal discipline within government and ensure that government fulfills its basic financial obligations.
We have it on record that some financial institutions, such as Bayport, have actually banned civil servants from borrowing from them because government fails to remit loan deductions every month that they do such deductions. We wish to put it on record that if this issue of government not remitting loan deductions is not addressed in the quickest possible time, a lot of financial institutions are going to have to close in the similar manner and fashion that Pan-African Building Society and Zampost Microfinance Limited have done. We also appeal to the new finance minister to quickly address this matter of government basically failing to remit loan deductions. Thank you.
Government has been challenged to clearly state the whereabouts of the approved Access to Information ATI bill. Zambia National Students Union ZANASU Secretary General Isaac Mwanza says the union has observed that government is giving contradictory statements on which ministry is in possession of the bill. Mr. Mwanza says ZANASU is therefore demanding for answers from the responsible ministries on what has happened to the bill and when government intends to table it in Parliament. In an interview with QTV News, Mr. Mwanza, who is also Young African Leaders Initiative Yali Governance Advisor, says ZANASU is worried that if this bill is not enacted into law, the media self-regulation bill may not see the light of day.
And I think we demand answers from the ministers responsible as to where the Access to Information bill is and when it is going to be tabled in Parliament. It will be a source of anarchy and confusion. They will look more confused as government that they want to come up with bills which they cannot finalize. You come up with a bill today, tomorrow you give up. The other day you come up with a bill, tomorrow you give up. Now they have a media bill, the media regulation bill. It tells us that they might actually be coming up with this bill and then giving it up at a later stage, which does not reflect well on responsibilities which they have as government. So we really demand that this bill must be tabled in Parliament as soon as possible, or the minister should come out and explain what is happening, what is delaying this bill. Why are they keeping assuring the nation when they cannot deliver the bill? Let them be very clear on this matter. It's a constitutional matter. The bill supports the Constitution. Access to information is part of the issues that are very critical in the Constitution, that people must access the Constitution, the information which is held by public.
National Action for Quality Education in Zambia NAQUES has advised the Ministry of General Education to engage traditional leaders in curbing the vice of pupils in rural areas dropping out of school for fishing and collecting caterpillars. NAQUES Executive Director Aaron Chansa feels the suggestion by the Minister of General Education David Mavumba to introduce a mobile education policy is not feasible. Mr. Chanda feels that such a move is a punishment to the teacher who would have to go to areas that might be impassable and dangerous to go to and teach the pupils who have gone for fishing or collecting caterpillars. He has further questioned whether such a concept will apply even for pupils in urban areas that have left school to either sell in markets or sleep on the streets. Mr. Chansa says the Ministry of Education should consider sensitizing affected communities on the importance of education. He has further called on the Ministry of Community Development and Social Welfare to move in and address poverty in areas prone to fishing and caterpillar collection.
National Action for Quality Education in Zambia is totally against the proposal by the minister that the ministry wants to introduce mobile education services, and this is supposed to cater for those learners that leave schools for fishing and caterpillar collection. We feel that in as much as this proposal looks good on face value, it's not feasible, it's not sustainable, and we feel that the minister must rescind this proposal. It's not workable in this country, and what we are proposing is that instead of this unsustainable project, we need to engage our chiefs in rural areas who are extremely influential, and we believe that these chiefs could be used to curtail or to stop this vice. And we also feel that the Ministry of Community Development must be able to move in those prone areas and attack poverty.
The Agriculture and Commercial Society of Zambia says over 250 foreign exhibitors have confirmed their participation in this year's 93rd Agriculture and Commercial Show. Speaking during a media briefing, Society President Caroline Silwamba says the Show Society has received an overwhelming response from exhibitors, which is confirmed by the figures that have been recorded for this year's edition of the show. Mrs. Silwamba adds that trade spaces for exhibitors accounting for 140,000 square meters, which covers 85% of the spaces, were taken up by 17 July 2019, with others still confirming. She has also announced that President Edgar Lungu will grace this year's show.
Agricultural demonstration areas will be an attraction this year. This is attested by the improvements which have been made to cater for diverse crops, inter alia, yam, vegetables, tea, and fruit crops. 2. Fish exhibition. The promotion of aquaculture in Zambia is also captivating, as many players have taken up spaces in our fish ponds. 3. Livestock exhibits. I am pleased that significant and credible measures have been instituted in liaison with relevant agencies to safeguard cattle and fat stock animals, which will be exhibited in light of the outbreak of foot and mouth.
The University of Zambia UNZA has, in partnership with Pearson of United Kingdom, launched an A-Level Academy. UNZA Acting Vice Chancellor Enala Mwase says the A-Level Academy will be looking at non-science areas of study. Professor Mwase has told QTV News that on the sidelines of the launch, that the academy will be preparing students to go into courses such as economics. She states that once students acquire this qualification, whose duration is 1.5 years, they will be going straight into second year of the faculty of their choice.
Today we are launching the University of Zambia Academy, A-Level Academy, which will actually be looking at the non-science areas. As you may know, that A-Levels in this country and UNZA as well has been concentrating on science-based areas, but this one is actually to do with non-science. So it will be preparing students to go into economics, law, and so on. And what it means is that once you get this qualification, you go straight into second year.
And Pearson Head of Business Development for Africa, Christine Hayes, says the A-Level Academy will provide a strong international standard foundation qualification. Ms. Hayes states that with this qualification, a student can either study at UNZA or proceed to study overseas.
And the intention is for this to provide a foundation program for students that want to progress into the second year of the various faculties within UNZA. So it provides a really strong international standard of foundation qualification for them to either progress into UNZA or to study overseas. So we're really excited to be partnering with UNZA to establish this academy, and we look forward to seeing the success of the students that are going to be enrolled through these programs.
Meanwhile, Zambia Qualifications Authority Chief Executive Officer Miriam Chiaba has congratulated UNZA for establishing a non-science A-Level Academy. Mrs. Chiaba has, however, clarified that the launched A-Level Academy does not mean Zambia has now begun offering A-Levels as entry qualification into university.
For us, we recognize those qualifications, and for those that are able to go into the A levels at the University of Zambia, or indeed at any university, as the qualifications authority, we do have mechanisms of ensuring that we confirm the authenticity of the qualification, and also in line with the conventions that we've signed in Zambia, we do the recognition process. So we wish to say congratulations to UNZA for taking this step as we are improving our education system. But this is not to say that Zambia has now started offering A-levels as the entry into university. That is a step for another day, but today it is for UNZA, which is embracing international comparability so that we do not have an extra level.
To end the news, we take a look at stories making headlines once again. Republican President Edgar Lungu has directed the Minister of Finance to ensure that the procurement of drugs and medical supplies is always prioritized. Finance Minister Wale Ngandu says the terms of reference given to him by President to stabilize and grow the economy offer limited room for delay. And organizers of the Yellow Card campaign against corruption have been challenged to report perceived corrupt government officials to relevant authorities. On that note, we end the news. Thank you for watching.